Let's talk now about how to multiply polynomials. And we're going to start with multiplying monomials, which, as you may or may not know, monomials means single term. So we're going to have single term polynomials. And for this multiplication, we're going to use our rules of exponents. So if you recall the rules of exponents, when you multiply powers of the same base, you're going to keep the base and then you will add the exponents together. So we're going to use that product rule of exponents to multiply these monomials. Let's start with the first one. So we have negative 4x to the third times 3x squared. And you're going to multiply the coefficients together. So you're going to multiply the negative 4 times the 3, which is going to give you a negative 12. And then you're going to use that product rule of exponents to multiply the x to the third times x squared. So that's going to be x to the fifth. So negative 12x to the fifth. Let's look at the next one. We have x to the fifth times 5x to the fourth. So we have an understood coefficient of 1 here, and 1 times 5 is going to be 5. And then again, using our product rule, x to the fifth times x to the fourth is x to the ninth. Let's go to the next one. Now we have a monomial that is 2x squared y, so we have two variables. And then we have another monomial that is x cubed y. We're going to multiply. Coefficient 2 times 1 is 2. X squared times x to the third is x to the fifth. And then y times y, as you know, is y squared. We'll do a little review now of the distributive properties. We multiply 3 times 2x minus 1. This is a binomial, two terms. And so we're going to distribute the 3. And so 3 times 2x is 6x. And 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. Now these are not like terms, so we stop there. Now let's distribute the 4 here. 4 times 3x is 12x. And then 4 times 4 is 16. So 12x plus 16. Again, these are not like terms, so we stop. Okay, in this next problem, our 2 is listed second in the problem, but we're still going to distribute it. We're going to distribute the 2. And so 2 times 4x squared is 8x squared. And 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. And these are not like terms, so that's our answer. Now we have 4xy times 5x cubed y squared plus 1. Distribute. 4 times 5 is 20. X times x cubed is x to the fourth. Y times y squared is y to the third. Plus, and then since we're multiplying 4xy times 1, we know that anything multiplied times 1 is just the number we started with, so that's just a 4xy. These are not like terms, so we cannot combine them, so we're done. Now we have negative xy times x squared plus y squared. So we're going to distribute the negative xy. Here we get x times x squared, so we get a negative x cubed y for the first term. And for the second term, we get a negative x y cubed. Not like terms, so we're done. Now let's multiply polynomials. And what we're going to do for multiplying binomials is that we're going to distribute twice. We will distribute first with the x, the first term, times both of these. And then we will distribute with the positive 3 times both of these. So x times x is x squared. X times 5 is a positive 5x. Now we come over here to the 3 and multiply 3 times x, which is plus 3x. And positive 3 times a positive 5 is positive 15. And now this time we do have some like terms here. We have the 5x and the 3x, so we can combine those and add those. Remember, when you combine like terms, you just add coefficients and keep the variable. And so then we get x squared plus 8x plus 15. Now some of you may have done multiplication of binomials before and used something called foiling. And let me show you where that comes from. The f comes from multiplying the first terms in the two binomials. So the x times x, those are the first terms, which is how we got the x squared. So this is, so multiply the first terms. The O comes from multiplying the outer terms. So that will be our x multiplied times the 5. These are the outer terms in the binomials. And that's how we got our 5x. So O is for outer. The I comes from multiplying our inner terms. And that's how we got 3 times x. These are the inner terms in the binomials. And so that's how we got this 3x. And the L is for last. This is when you multiply the last term. The last term in the first binomial times the last term in the second. So 3 times 5, which is 15. So foiling, which we say foiling for FOIL method, is the same as distributing the two terms in the first binomial times the second binomial. Okay, let's try our foiling here with number 18 here. Remember, it's going to be first, outer, inner, and then last. Okay, so x times x is x squared. X times positive 7 is plus 7x. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x. And negative 2 times 7 is negative 14. And then we have these like terms here. So we're going to use the coefficients and add. So we get x squared. Positive 7 and a negative 2 is a plus 5x. Then minus 14. Okay, let's try that again. Our foiling. First, outer, inner, and last. Okay, so 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times a negative 1 is negative 2x. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x. And negative 3 times negative 1 is positive 3. Add the two middle terms, which are the like terms here. So 2x squared, negative 2 and a negative 3 is negative 5x, and then plus 3. So 2x squared minus 5x plus 3. All right, let's go to the next one. Now the next one, for our next problem, we have a binomial being multiplied times a trinomial. And so we're going to distribute, just as before. We're going to distribute the two terms in the first binomial with multiplied times a trinomial, 3 terms. So 2 terms and 3 terms. And we're going to use distributive property again. We're going to distribute first the x in the binomial times all 3 terms in the trinomial. And then we're going to come back and distribute the y in the binomial times all 3 terms in the trinomial. So x times x squared is x to the third. X times a negative xy is negative x squared y. And x times a y squared is xy squared. Okay, now distribute the y. We have y times x squared is yx squared. Now, I want you to notice something. Yx squared and x squared y are like terms. I'm going to go ahead and line up. Let me change the color on that. I'm going to go ahead and line up the like terms in columns. So this y times x squared will give us a positive x squared y or yx squared. Those are the same. Then here I get a y times a negative xy, which is a negative xy squared. So I'm going to line that up right under my other xy squared. And then I have y times y squared, which is plus y cubed. Now I'm going to go ahead and add like terms kind of in columns. So this is x cubed here. These two like terms, because they have opposite coefficients, they cancel. Okay? That because this is 0. And then xy squared and a negative xy squared, that's also 0. So then we're left with just plus y cubed. So x cubed plus y cubed is our answer. Okay, and we have another trinomial multiplied times a binomial. Again, I like using the binomial to distribute because, I don't know, it's a personal choice. So we're going to distribute the b squared times the b to the fourth, the 3b squared, and the 1. And then I'm going to distribute the negative 1 times the then I'm going to distribute the negative 1 times the b to the fourth, negative 3b squared, and the positive 1. Okay, so let's do that. So b squared times b to the fourth is b to the 6. Remember, you're adding those exponents. And then b squared times a negative 3b squared is a negative 3b to the fourth. And b squared times 1 is plus b squared. Then I have negative 1 times b to the fourth is a negative b to the fourth. So I'm lining up. That's just a personal choice to line up in columns the like terms. And then I have a negative 1 times a negative 3b squared gives me a positive 3b squared. So I'm going to line that up with the other b squared. And then a negative 1 times the 1 is a negative 1. And then I'm going to add in columns. This gives me a b to the 6. Here I have a negative 3 added to a negative 1, so that's a negative 4b to the fourth. Then I have here a positive 1b squared added to a 3b squared, which is a positive 4b squared, and then minus 1. No more like terms, so that's our answer. Okay, and now let's do a word problem. So this says a box has a width 2 inches less than its height and a length 5 inches more than its height. If h represents the height of the box, write a polynomial that represents the volume of the box. So, you know, a box has width and it has a length and then it has a height. Okay, so here's my box, and take into mind that I'm not the best artist. Okay, so let's actually, I'm changing my mind a minute. We're going to let this be your height, right? That's our h, okay? And then this is our length. And our length is 5 inches more than the height. 5 inches more means plus. And then the height we said was h. So our length is h plus 5. Okay? And then we have our width here. And the width is 2 inches less than the height. So now some of you are going to want to write 2 minus h, but it's less than always means subtract the previous number from the second number. So 2 inches less than its height means height subtract 2. So our width is h minus 2. So volume of a box is length times width times height. So for our box, volume's going to be length is h plus 5. Width is h minus 2. And then height is h. So this is our volume. And to write a polynomial, then we need to multiply these three polynomials together. So what you do is you multiply two at a time. Means the first two and then times the third. So let's go ahead and multiply the h plus 5 times the h minus 2. And since those are both binomials, then you know you're going to FOIL. So you're going to do h times h times negative 2, first outer, 5h inner, and then 5 minus 2, which is last. So that gives us h squared. H times h is h squared. H times negative 2 is a negative 2h. 5 times h is plus 5h. And 5 times negative 2 is negative 10. And we have these two like terms here in the middle. So we get h squared, and negative 2 plus a positive 5 is a positive 3h minus 10. So that's multiplying the first two. But for the volume, we need to take that product, that answer, and multiply times another h. So take this guy times h. So for volume, we get this guy times h. So then you're going to distribute the h. So volume is h cubed plus 3h squared minus 10h. And that's the polynomial for the volume of our box. Okay, part B says, use this polynomial to calculate the volume of the box if h is 15 inches. So volume equals, so h cubed plus 3h squared minus 10 times h. So now it's time to take out our calculator. And so we need 15 cubed. Remember the caret? That means for exponents, for power. So 15 cubed plus 3 times 15 squared minus 10 times 15. Okay, so 15 cubed plus 3 times 15 squared minus 10 times 15, and then you hit enter, and our answer is that we have 3,900 cubic inches for our volume. So V equals 3,900 cubic inches cubed, cubic inches for volume.